Hey, good afternoon, guys. Thanks for joining in on a Saturday afternoon. This is Ankur. I am the AVP Operations at Great Learning, also the programs head, which also includes the our online program in AIML. Right. So I hope everyone is able to hear me and also is able to look at the screen. I'm sharing my screen. If you have any questions during the session, please feel free to type it up in the questions box so that I can look at it, and I'll address all the questions towards the end of my prepared presentation. I also have, so what I'll do is, what I'll do today in this session is, I'll start with a brief intro about Great Lakes and Great Learning, right? Then I will focus on understanding what is the opportunity in the artificial intelligence and the machine learning area. And then I'll move on to discussing how can we go about learning it, right? And what we have pioneered as a method to learn effectively is personalized mentorship. So I'll be talking about that. I also have with me Anand Subramanian. He is one of our esteemed mentors. And during the course of this webinar, he also will speak and share his experiences as a mentor with us, right? So that's okay, I'll start. Okay, so Great Lakes. So Great Lakes is now consistently, it's an Institute of Management with 2 campuses in Chennai and in Gurgaon, and we have about 6 learning centers. And Great Lakes now has been consistently ranked as among the top 10 business institutes in India, right? And this is when we started in 2002. So we started Great Lakes in 2002, and in a very short span of time, it has made that esteemed list of top 10 institutes in India. This list is the other institutes in this list are again very esteemed and have been around for decades. So, but we have made this journey very quickly and very fast. And the reason that we think we have been able to make this journey and get this, from our peers and from the industry, get this recognition, is because our focus has been to deliver one, quality education, and that means quality content, good quality faculty, and all of that. If you notice, 3 of our analytics faculty is ranked as the best data science faculty in India. So that's one. The second thing is our focus on the industry trends. So way back in 2012, when analytics was still an emerging area, we set up a center of excellence in analytics, and our focus has been to just figure out what are the new emerging areas. So after that, very quickly we started our programs in analytics, machine learning, data science, artificial intelligence. Now we also have programs in cloud computing, and we're also looking to start programs in cybersecurity and blockchain, right? So the focus is to keep in step with the trends which are emerging in the industry and provide quality education on all of these new and upcoming areas. So our analytics program has been ranked #1 program in India for now the 4th year in row. So again, that's a lot of recognition from our peers and from the industry for what we are doing. So Great Learning is an institute which works in close partnership with Great Lakes. It is emerged to be the leading edtech company in India, and our mission. So Great Learning's focus is on working professionals, and our mission is to make every professional future proficient. So till now, we offer right now 8 top ranked programs, and we have catered to about 5,000 professionals, and we have recently hit the milestone of having delivered 4 million learning hours in analytics, data science, machine learning, and AI. So that was a quick intro about Great Learning and Great Lakes. This slide talks about where do our alumni work, and this alumni list is for Great Learning. What you will notice here is that our alumni, so this list of companies, right? This list of companies is not just the big names in technology. When you think about machine learning and AI, you would think about all of these tech giants using some of these advanced techniques, and having teams in these advanced techniques. But what we observe from this list is that companies across retail, aviation, automotive, there's a Royal Enfield here, there's a Ford here, Mahindra here, right? Banking, obviously, manufacturing, hospitality, there is Taj here on this list. So when we now talk about machine learning and AI as domains, what we see is the impact of machine learning and AI has been across the industry domains. It's not limited to one particular sector, but it is more widely cast, right? So in some cases, people talk about that these are AI and ML are the upcoming and emerging areas. But from this list, what we can see is that they're not the emerging areas. All of these companies have already taken bets, have already teams around in these areas, and they're continuously pursuing development and using the use of these techniques to get competitive advantage. To make this point a little further, this is the life cycle of each company. So this is what we observe, that this is in terms of using these techniques, this is how each company goes through, right? So starting from using very basic data to report, like business intelligence, and then start doing some bits of analysis, some kind of forecasting, then going to, as companies invest more into this, the volume of data increases, they have to now start involving technologies which can handle big data. And then some of the techniques that they use also become a little more refined. They start using data science techniques. Then they go on to machine learning and then to AI, right? So the whole point of putting this slide up was to, to discuss that it's not an option. Every company is somewhere in this stage of going to AI and deep learning, right? And it's not an option for any of the companies to not pursue this, right? Because in today's world, a lot of data is being generated, right? So if a company is not using that data, is not generating data, is not using that data for its own advantage to make better decisions, then it is losing out to its competitors. So all of the companies that we looked at in the previous slides, they're already in the machine learning and the AI part, and we see a lot of companies in this. But even if a company is not here, in today's world, when the cost of computing has gone down, when the cost of data storage has gone down considerably, right? All of the companies are moving very quickly to the right side of the spectrum. And I'm guessing all of you also must be observing this in your workplaces, in your companies where you're working, right? That there has been in the last 3-4 years, there have been a consistent shift in focus to use some of these techniques. Some of you who are in the service industry also would see that the demands of the clients, the kind of projects that you're getting now, are also getting skewed towards some of these advanced techniques in machine learning and AI, right? And so that's the reason is the right time to pursue upskilling in these areas, to understand about these areas, and to have a formal education, and then go ahead and build on it, right? Because having this knowledge at this stage of the career can provide you with that additional inflection point to improve the career trajectory for yourselves. So these are some more information which just points to the same thing, that the AI ML opportunity is huge. And we're talking about, in this slide, particularly about India. So NASSCOM had a study, and where it predicted that India needs 100,000 data scientists by the end of 2018. And we are already observing this trend. The last month, if you look at the jobs posted for machine learning, AI, and DL, the jobs were more than 10,000. So we are already hitting this run rate. And as we go along, this number is going to up to increase more and more, right, at a higher rate as well. Again, McKinsey, according to a McKinsey report, India is to become world's second biggest market for AI and ML by 2020. And this is also because of the model that we have followed in the last decade, where we are closely linked to the trends emerging in the US. A lot of service industry works on that model. So if the trends are emerging in the US, India is the, by design, in all of these trends starts emerging in India. And again, a lot of opportunities, a lot of jobs are created in India. So we engage constantly with the industry to understand their requirements. And this is the list. In the fourth point, you can see the list of companies that we have engaged within the last 1 month. And all of these companies are sharing with us the same story, that they now have a lot of demand and need for people who know machine learning and AI, and across the spectrum of experience, beginning from the entry level, going into mid-career to top management. So now they want professionals who know about these techniques to come and work with their businesses, again, with the same reason that they want to use some of these techniques to embed it very closely to get that extra competitive advantage. Right. So the analogy which I use here usually is, let's say if you go back to 1995, 1996, right, which was the starting of the technology boom, right? We all know about the 2000, 2001 technology boom. If you go back to that period, you would see similar trends and similar kind of talks about technology, right? And people kind of debating whether it is indeed going to change the industry, whether there would be enough jobs in this domain, right? And what we have seen in the last decade and a half, that story has panned out. So similar to that, I think we are at almost similar inflection point for machine learning and AI, where it is undeniable that these techniques would be used considerably as we go along, right? And it'll become, the expectations will become for everyone to know about these techniques, as has become for technology, right? For IT. There's some more numbers here on the slide, which the interesting things which I want to point out here is that there has been a 50% annual growth in the rate of AI spend, right? And again, this is going to increase as we go along. Then another interesting number here is that 84% of the companies are investing in AI, right? So that just kind of points to the fact that every company has to make this journey. In terms of jobs, since 2013, there has been a 4.5x growth in jobs requiring AI skills in these 5 years. And again, this rate is going to go up from here. So overall, I think, as I said, looking at all of these numbers and all of these trends, what we can safely say is that knowing these techniques at this time is becoming now crucial, right? To provide the next phase of growth in your careers. And as we go along, some of these stories and some of these usages of these techniques, we will start seeing more and more. And we have already started seeing it. We have, as I said, all the companies that I pointed out, they already have they've gone big on setting up these teams in their respective domains. Okay, so having now seen that there is a big opportunity in AI and ML, right? Let me jump to the next point, which is, let's say if we were to make a transition into an ML and AI and then invest in learning these techniques, how do we go about doing it, right? So first of all, I've listed down here all the kind of techniques, the kind of topics which you need to know in the ML areas and the AI areas, right? One thing to note here is that the way, these techniques are a bit technical in nature, right? Having said that, there is a lot of maths grounding to it. Some of these techniques have been around for since the 60s, 70s, right? but they're gaining traction right now because the computation power has now become available to us just now, right? So there is some technical feel to it. But having said that, it's nothing which cannot be learned if we go about it in a systematic manner, right? We at Great Learning teach this course in Python. Python is emerged to be the language of choice for ML and AI, right? Although there is no prerequisite to know Python. We start a course with an intro to Python and then start and on statistics, so build the base and then we start building on it, right? So, but as a prerequisite, some programming knowledge is desirable, but then knowing these techniques, if we go about it in a systematic manner, anywhere, right, it's not very difficult to understand these techniques, but some effort is required to be consistent in this. It is not a very light subject. It requires some involvement and some dedication from each participant. I also want to point out that at Great Learning, the AI part of the course has been created by IIT Bombay professors. So even in the videos that we use, these are the IIT Bombay professors who teach this content. Okay. So having understood that it requires some effort and some discipline to learn these techniques, to go about learning AI and ML, let's look at what kind of learning formats exist, right? One is classroom, obviously, and classroom is obviously the superior way to learn, right? To be in the class with the instructor-led classroom, you can interact with the peers, you can ask all your questions, doubts. All of that happens real time. You are physically present there. You're also not distracted, right? So classroom definitely is the best. AI, I'm experiencing some technical issues. Hopefully now everyone can hear me. Okay, just a minute. Okay, so as I was saying, the online format definitely gives access to the content delivered by an expert, and it can be self-paced, and it also provides a lot of flexibility in learning, but a lot of discipline is required to be consistent, right? And if I have to point to the biggest determinant to making sure that the learning outcomes are met, that has to be discipline and consistency. So, so in this online case, discipline then becomes, it's important to be very methodical about making sure that you're viewing that content, an X amount of content every time, right? The other issue with online is that the support system is impersonal. So you can, if you're stuck somewhere, if you have any doubt, and as I said, so these topics in machine learning and AI can get a little bit technical in nature. So if there is that support needed, the support is usually through emails, discussion boards, Googling, figuring out exactly what have other people done, but there is no support system per se, right? So, obviously there are some advantages to online, right? So what we have done, and this is the method that we have pioneered, is that the kind of model that we work with is a which combination which brings the best of both worlds. So which includes, which we call as online plus mentorship. So it retains all the benefits of the online format, which is self-paced uh, and convenient, right? But what we add on top of that is a mentorship session each weekend. So what that means is that the learning bits are divided into weekly targets. So you have weekly about 2.5, 3 hours of content to look at, to prepare. And at the end of the week, there is a mentorship session scheduled where you meet the mentor and then you discuss about what have you learned. So there is some structure that we provide to it. There's a lot of structure that we provide to it. There is that discipline on a weekly basis, which is provided, right? But again, on a weekly basis, you will have to one has to view the content and make sure that all the content to be viewed in that week has been covered before going to the mentorship sessions so that one can make the best out of these sessions. So, so this is the way we structure our online mentorship, which is each topic or all the topics are broken down into modules, and one module usually or typically has one topic that we cover. Then we break it down into 4 weeks. And again, we also break down the video material to be consumed into weekly consumable bits. We have about 2.5 hours to 3 hours of content to go through each week, which again, we have after a lot of, iterations, what we have figured out. And we've also seen that this is the ideal amount of content, even with a busy schedule, to consume during a week. So once participants view the content, and there's also a quiz at the end of it, so that by attempting the quiz, participants will know whether they have been able to understand what have they viewed to a certain degree or not. So if they don't score too well in the quiz, then they can go back and look at the content once again and then attempt the quiz, right? But once all of this happens on a weekly basis, there is a mentor session which is scheduled over the weekend, right? And which is where the mentors talk about what have you, to talk about the content which was shared last week, give more flavor to it, and I'll talk about it in more detail in the next slide. But then this mentorship session acts as an enforcing mechanism that you have viewed all the content, right? And also provides us a good discussion forum to understand those topics in more details. It's not impersonal anymore because the mentors now can bring in examples from their experience, can also work with you to answer your specific queries. They also do a lot of case studies to showcase what are the topics that were covered, right? And how are they supposed to be implemented. So the other important thing that we focus on is one is the theoretical learning, right? And then especially in ML and AI areas, learning the theory is not enough unless you start doing it hands-on, unless you start coding in Python and then writing so those small snippets of code to execute these algorithms and see what kind of results are you getting, and then learning from there. So that becomes a very, very important part of the learning process, right? And that's where, again, mentors help by showing live demos and live case studies in the mentorship sessions. The other features of this online program are that in addition to all of this, and okay, so let me, so in a typical module, we do this mentorship sessions for till week 3. Then also at the end of the module, there is a project where participants get to implement whatever they have learned in a case study or a project kind of format. So that, again, as I said, if you are implementing what you have learned, the learning outcomes are much better, and you're able to also draw out more themes from the content. In addition to that, there are regular industry sessions that are conducted where every one of the participants joins, and then we invite an industry expert to talk through some of the chosen topics, which again bridge the gap between theoretical understanding and how is it applied, how is a method applied in the industry or in a business scenario, right? We also conduct hackathons, again to give put participants in that high pressure environment to get really good results in a very little time, and that again is a very effective and a proven methodology. And at the end of the whole program, there is a capstone project, which which basically involves end-to-end application of whatever they have learned in over the course of program. And these capstone projects are very important because once you're learning a course, and so one way is to talk about so when you're learning a course, right, how do you showcase it? One is to just talk about that I've learned these topics. The other way to showcase it is by saying that these are the projects that I've done. And for each module, you have the projects that you're working on. And in addition, the capstone. So you can talk about, this is what I learned, this is how I applied, and this is what my inferences were, and this is how. So then this becomes a good starting conversation point if you're talking to, let's say, within your team or prospective employers, right? So it just gives you a good way to showcase what have you learned in the program. So let me talk a little more about the mentorship sessions. So mentorship sessions, again, are designed in a way to bring out more flavors from the learning material. So the learning material usually covers all the concepts. Also, there is the quiz that I talked about. But when a mentor is involved and is meeting the participants on a weekly basis, how does a typical mentorship session run? So what a mentor does is first reviews all the material which was covered in the past week, provides his or her perspective on the topic, and this can come from the experience, the rich experience the mentor has. Also handles any Q&A on the topic. Then uses a case study, goes through a case study to elaborate on the concepts, to also showcase how do you apply these concepts to business problems. During the last week of the module, there's a discussion on the project so that each participant is clear on what kind of path do they have to take, what kind of themes do they have to pursue in the project, right? Also, we create, and which is very important, we create WhatsApp groups with the mentor. And what that enables is that you can chat with your peers and your mentor on that WhatsApp group. And what we've seen is for all the groups that we have with the mentors for our online programs, these groups usually have a lot of buzz. I mean, people just keep on asking questions, their insights, perspectives, just keep posting all of that. And that becomes like a very rich way to discuss what you're learning, right? So this provides a very rich support system. It also enables interaction with the peers, right? So one thing that we do at Great Learning is that our mentor sessions are usually very personalized. We call it micro class. It's not, we want to ensure that there is personalized attention for everyone involved in the mentorship sessions. So we keep our groups usually from 5 to 8 per mentor, so that there is a possibility to build that deeper connect with the mentor as you go along, right? It kind of, and what we observed is that it becomes less of a mentor-mentee kind of a relationship. It starts becoming more of a personal relationship as you go along in some cases. So these are the simple list of companies where our mentors work. Again, we get industry experts who are working on these kind of algorithms and these kind of techniques in their work. So, and these companies clearly showcase that the pedigree of our mentors is really high, and that we keep a very high bar on the experience, because that's one thing that we really want to come out in the mentorship sessions, which we pay and put a lot of importance on, is the experience of the mentor has to add a lot of value for each of the participants. Right. So at this point, as I said, I have Anand Subramanian with me. So Anand has a rich experience of over 2 decades. Right. He has been in multiple. He was a VP at Bank of America. He's also an alumni, and he is a mentor with us. So I'll request Anand now to talk about his experience as a mentor and the themes that he has observed while interacting with the participants over the course of time. Over to you, Anand.
Thank you, Ankur. I hope I'm audible to everyone. Ankur, am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay, cool, fine. So let me quickly give a intro about myself. As Ankur mentioned, I have over 2 decades of experience in the industry. Lot of IT technology and mostly focused on banking, right? The technology aspects of banking. I've worked with both MNCs as well as Indian companies. Have worked in the US as well as in India. My last corporate role or leadership role has been with Bank of America, where I was heading the data analytics platform for the wealth management line of business. And then from 2016 onwards, I'd been predominantly doing focused consulting around data science, also playing the role of a data science evangelist. I've been consulting various companies. Currently, I'm working and consulting with a global IT services company, setting up their as their principal architect, primarily responsible for their ML and AI practice. Glad to be with you all. I'm hoping to take you through the journey of what an exciting journey data science as a platform can offer. But more importantly, what we'll be trying to cover is what I have experienced being a mentor for Great Lakes, and how I've been able to see progress and change among many of the students that I had worked with, and students that had learned under me, and so on and so forth, right? And we'll also I'll also try to cover a sample use case of how a typical machine learning project might look like. Okay, so from a mentor standpoint, I've mentored in Great Lakes both online and offline platforms, and one of the things that I've always liked about the mentoring platform is I truly believe that mentoring is not just a one-way show. It is a dialogue, right? So what I liked about Great Learning's platform is there is always a dialogue between students and mentors, right? And it opens up opportunities of learning, not just for students but also for mentors. So so on the online mentoring platforms that I had mentored with Great Lakes, it's been a pretty great journey, because number one, I always had the opportunity to work with a focused set of people over a lengthier period of time, right? So these weekend sessions happen over many months, so I get to create personal rapport with many of my mentees, and who are generally people at various playing various different roles, C-level roles at various different organizations. So there's a lot of interaction that happens during the weekend sessions, and as Ankur mentioned, the whole aspect about machine learning and AI is not just the theoretical aspect, but also the technical aspect of it, and it needs a lot of discussion. So it cannot be so along with the online platform, the online videos, a mentoring session has been predominantly very successful, both for the mentees as well as for the mentors. So I'd had a lot of personal rapport that I had been able to build with all my mentees, and I still am connected with them. So that is number one. It also helps me to understand the individual needs of every student, because of the fact that it's not a large population, it is a very focused population. It allows me to understand the individual needs of every student, guide them at a high level where their points of focus should be. In a 5 or a 7 member team, it is always easier, and I can always pay personal attention during the weekends also. So I understand that in 2 hours you cannot cover much, but 2 hours over a period of few months, you can definitely create that relationship, right? So that is something that I really liked about Great Learning's platform. And I think that is one of the reasons why I've also seen people who have probably not have much of an IT background, not had much of an analytics background, had been able to pick up pretty fast, not just because of the online videos and the way the course is designed, but also because of the way the mentoring platform works. So that said, I've also had offline mentoring, which is mentoring in classes, and the story is the same, where there's a lot of rapport that is being established, and I had to really thank Great Learning for encouraging that kind of a rapport between mentors and mentees. Okay. Mentoring platform is something that that's been there with Great Learning. What I wanted to probably do, after our session on the mentoring itself, like given that I've put a I've set the table and set the tempo on understanding what mentoring can offer you. I also want to quickly run through some of the machine learning use cases, that could help you understand, what is needed for you to be able to mentally prepare yourself for a course such as this, right? Ankur, can you hand over the control to me? Yeah, sure. Okay. Yes. Okay. I hope my screen is visible to everyone. Yeah. Okay. Fine. So what I wanted to take you through today is a use case, again specifically around how use cases get built around this ML and AI platform, right? So one of the common things that you might be experiencing once you get to the rigmarole of these domains, the ML and AI domain, is there a lot of things that happen in the background, and your job as a data scientist would be to make sure that whatever happens in the background happens efficiently, and make sure that it gets articulated in the foreground to the management appropriately, right? So a mixed set of skill sets are required, not just the analytics skill sets, not just the technology skill sets, but also being able to articulate your thoughts effectively to various different audience. So so from that perspective, I felt that it would be meaningful if I cover a particular business use case, and then slowly translate it into a Python code, so that you can understand how this all pans out, and what kind of what kind of mental preparation that you may need for a course such as this. So what I'm going to talk today is around a topic called customer segmentation, a most widely used topic, but at the same time not a topic which many retail organizations as well as banks are still struggling to get their hands over, right? So typically the whole thought process behind customer segmentation is to understand the customers better, right? And how do you understand the customers is not just a typical know your customer kind of process in the banks, but try to understand who your customers are, not just at a profile level but at a behavioral level, meaning what the customers are doing, what are they buying, which kind of products are they more interested in, right? So as a result, when you know more about the customers, you can understand and provide better services to the customers, right? So it's a common problem that almost all organizations are trying to face, trying to solve. But more importantly, the problem becomes bigger and bigger because of, number one, there are multiple channels of customers. What do I mean by multiple channels? Customers who only do online transactions, customers who only do mobile transactions, customers who are always feeling comfortable only when they get into a brick and mortar shop and shop. So there are several channels that are happening, and customers seem to be of very different type. So it becomes imperative for an organization to clearly understand customers, not just for the entire organization, but understand the different segments of customers, right? And provide personalized solutions or services for them. So the whole aspect of customer segmentation is to know the customer at a segment level, number one, which means the organization first needs to go through segmenting, customer segmenting as a process, right? So what do I mean by customer segmenting? Customer segmenting could be customers who are your online customers, customers who are your brick and mortar customers. That could be one form of segmenting. The other form of segmenting could be customers who are loyal to you, customers who are big spenders, customers who don't spend much, customers who are likely to churn out, right? So this kind of segmentation is also possible. The challenge is, while many organizations have some form of segmentation, the in the olden days, this segmentation was always business rules driven, right? It was not data rules driven, it was business rules driven. So as a result, organizations were not able to effectively continually segmenting different types of customers in a better manner. Okay, so customer segmentation was there, but was very costly earlier. Okay, so what was needed was a better way of segmenting customers, and that's where machine learning and AI came in play, right? The moment ML and AI platforms started making the buzz, technology platforms around ML and AI also started really picking up speed. As a result, a complex process like customer segmentation was it was effectively done time and again, not just one time. It is not a one-time investment, but it was more like a daily investment or a weekly investment, right? If an organization wants to do customer segmentation on a weekly basis, now the technology infrastructure on the platform becomes much more easier to do it. Okay, so how was this how was it done earlier, or probably even today in many organizations? It is all based on past business rules, and the segmentation focuses mainly on what the customer has spent, not on how many times the customer has come or what kind of engagement that the customer has had. And more importantly, it was driven by this management principle, right? 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your customers. So it was predominantly based on this concept where it is all revenue driven, not engagement driven. Okay, but with ML, with predictive analytics coming in play, there was an opportunity to really understand the engagement level of customers. So how do you understand the engagement level of customers? How many times does a customer visit your online website or your shop, right? And how recent the customer has been, right? And more importantly, what kind of questions that the customer is asking, right? Have there been complaints that the customer is raising continually? All this kind of structured, unstructured, and semi-structured data has now seen is now effectively being processed because of the advent of machine learning, and obviously advent of all the satellite technology solutions associated with machine learning, right? Like big data solutions. So with all of this, what has been really phenomenal with ML is I don't just get to run and understand my customer segment once, but I get to understand as a retail company owner, I get to understand it whenever I like, right? And I based on what my segmentation are, it allows me to strategize targeted marketing campaigns. What do I mean is, for me, if I know there is a particular customer segment who are big spenders, and they are not engaged well, meaning the customer comes in once in a year, spends a lot of money, and then he's absconding for the next 1 year, right? So this is a segment of customers I would like to have a different marketing campaign, encourage them to engage well with the organization in a different way. So this kind of targeted marketing campaign is something that has become much more possible with the help of machine learning, right? And what is more important is the way machine learning works is it looks at all the patterns, your supervised learning algorithm, your classification algorithms is able to easily classify different segment of customers, number one, and it keeps on classifying, meaning the algorithm learns how many ever times you run it, it learns. And there are there are cases today where organizations are running segmentation real time, right? What do I mean by real time? It is not a batch process in the background, it's more like a real time process. So that is the difference between an online ML process and an offline ML process. So that is becoming very possible with machine learning and predictive analytics. Why? Well, that said, what is also possible with good customer segmentation is the organization has now a gold mine of information about existing customers that it can apply to improve multiple things. Number one, as I said, targeted marketing. Number two, cross-selling and upselling of products, right? Any customer that has probably been buying one set of products, how do you cross-sell and upsell different kind of products to the customer? Recommendation of customers at the segment level becomes much more easier with the help of customer segmentation, right? So there are ever so many use cases that are possible. More importantly, domains in like banking, where B2B domains, like forget about B2C domains, but the B2B domains where there are business to business customers, ability to understand the existing customer segmentation and apply that to your leads and prospects, that pattern to your leads and prospects, has really improved the rate of new customer acquisition with companies, right? So there's a lot more use cases of ML and machine learning and predictive analytics. I've just taken customer segmentation as one use case. Okay, there are many other use cases that are possible, like customer recommendation, product association, cart analytics, wish list analytics, search analytics, click-through prediction. There are so many different use cases that retail organizations are now applying machine learning across the board. Okay, so now what we will do is more around customer segmentation, right? Try to look at use case around customer segmentation. And customer segmentation can be done in many ways, not just through business rules, but also through certain analysis type called RFM analysis, recency, frequency, and monetary analysis, which many of you might have already known. But more importantly, where customer segmentation is helpful is how to use this data, which is something as simple as recency, frequency, and monetary, and how to use this data and and really make and really understand your customers better, right? So that is where the biggest benefit of true customer segmentation is. So what we are going to see is a good use case of how to use recency, frequency, and monetary, and how to segment the customers better using that, and how to run machine learning using RFM, right? So this is the use case that we'll be seeing today. Okay, so let me go back to my code, right? And I'll cover this quickly. So think about this as, for every machine learning project or a data science project, there are a few phases or few steps that are needed, right? Number one is what is called as data ingestion, where you download the data that you are going to analyze, right? So that is number one. Number two would be data pre-processing, where whatever data that you have, whatever raw data that you have, what kind of process you need to apply on that raw data, right? The process could be, in our case, first of all, removing bad data, right? That could be the case. The second one is understanding and understanding how the customers are engaging through recency, frequency, and monetary, meaning I'll have to apply a mathematical model called RFM to be able to understand the data better. So the application of the process of application of that model is something that is possible through data pre-processing. As part of data pre-processing, I will also have to clean up the data. I'll have to make sure that my data is evenly balanced. I'll have to do several different data data preparation techniques. This is something that is unique to machine learning projects, where you will have to go through a certain set of steps to be able to understand your data better and to process your data better. So once you clean up the data, what you do is you start playing around with the data, right? So what do I mean by playing around with the data is, in our case of customer segmentation, I am just purely looking at how recently a customer has transacted, how frequently a customer has transacted, and what is the money value that a customer is bringing in. So I have to create some new columns. I have to create some new fields, new business fields called recency score, frequency score, and monetary score. And I have to combine those fields into another column called RFM score. So as part of data manipulation, I would create what is called as a feature creation, where I create new columns which are needed for the processing and the running of effective customer segmentation. Okay, so once I create these columns, as part of my data manipulation exercise, what I do is I create a data set on which my machine learning algorithm is going to work. Okay, so all of these steps, I'm not going to go through these steps step by step, because I think it's just way too much for you guys at this point in time. I just show at a high level. So once I have those new fields, as you can see, I am segmenting the customers based on those new fields as loyal customers, big spenders, large spenders, and bad spenders. I'm creating 4 segments. Okay, out of this data, all of this process will happen during the data manipulation step, right? And then I start performing, once I create that columns, I start performing what is called as exploratory data analysis, meaning I start analyzing the data, right? So what kind of analysis I'm doing? Simple analysis is, what is the percentage of big spenders, what is the percentage of lost customers, what is the percentage of bad spenders and loyal customers. So that is one form of analysis. The other form of analysis could be around how many customers are recent, how many customers are frequent. So I do a lot of univariate and bivariate analysis, which you will be learning as part of your course, where how does one variable work with another, right? So for example, here if you see how many customers are frequent customers, how many customers are recent customers, right? All that kind of analysis, you start digging deeper about your data. Okay, and across all the segments, which segment has been spending more money, right? Like several different analysis is possible through Python, simple Python visualization, right? And you get to understand more. So why do I need to analyze? I get to understand more about the data, so I need to do exploratory data analysis, EDA, right? So once I do visualization, once I do EDA, I get more information about my customers, right? So for example, here I've gone to the level of just analyzing at an invoice level, which invoices are higher invoices and which are not, right? So all of this kind of analysis, the more you analyze, the more you explore, the better your chances of coming out with better predictions. So as a data scientist, 70% of your work would be on exploring and analyzing your data, right? So data preparation, data manipulation, and data exploration is the key aspect for any data scientist. Okay, 70 to 75% of your work is going to be purely exploring and analyzing the data. And then once you analyze the data, you start running your machine learning models. You start understanding what are the models that can be applied for prediction. Okay, so I've just played around with a lot of analysis. You don't have to break your heads with this, but I'm moving on to a stage where how each variable works with each other variable, right? So that is another aspect of data science, where you can understand at a data level how one variable is affecting another variable. So there is the concept called correlation that you will be learning as part of your course, where you will be able to understand how total price is affecting recency, or how frequency is affecting the monetary value and stuff like that, right? So this data level analysis is something that is not possible in a typical software SDLC lifecycle project. This is something that you will learn better only by becoming a data scientist. Okay, and that is where exploration becomes a very important aspect. And once you understand that, you start getting into the phase of model selection. So what is model selection? Is basically you know about your data well, you know what fields influence what other fields, and you know how fields are connected with each other. Now for the purposes of customer segmentation, what you need to do is you are supposed to do 2 things. One is you are supposed to understand the existing customer segments, which you have understood by exploration, where I have bad customers, big spenders, lost customers, and bad spenders, right? So with that pattern, I want to be able to come out with a machine learning model which will help me to predict any data or any customer as to which segment the customer is likely to fall into. Okay, so given a new set of customers, I would be able to understand, with the help of my machine learning algorithm, I would be able to understand under which customer segment that customer might be falling into. So that is the advantage of machine learning. It does not only give you the pattern of existing data, it also helps you to understand if some new data is passed in, which of the customer segments will that new data fit into, right? Imagine a retail owner having that power. If he knows under which segment, a customer segment, a particular new customer might fall in, don't you think he'll be able to treat the customer better even before the customer has really started showing potential, right? So that is where machine learning helps in play. So as part of machine learning model selection, what we do is we look at various different techniques, right? Whether it is classification techniques like random forest or a support vector model or KNN, Naviers. So in this case, we are working on a classification algorithm because we want to segment customers into different segments. So each segment is a class. So we are going to work on a classification algorithm. Okay, but in other cases, you might want to work on regression algorithms. For that, there are other techniques. So you will be learning both classification and regression algorithms in detail in the machine learning course that you might be wanting to apply for. Okay, so I am running several models, right? I have actually run more than 4 or 5 models of classification. There are various different classification techniques. So I have run 4 or 5 different classification techniques. I have come out and I've measured each of them. You evaluate the model, just like how in a SDLC lifecycle you test your code. Model evaluation is the way to actually test the performance of your model, right? For each of the techniques, what is the performance, right? And once you really measure the model, you start you get model output. The output of the model is measured in terms of model accuracy. It is also measured in terms of various other terms like AUC, area under the curve, we call it. Okay, so typically in this case, my model is 97% accurate. So which means every time I pass in a data, I can claim that my model can predict to 97% accuracy what the customer segments are. Okay, so this is not how in real life this will be. Once a model is accurate 97%, it doesn't mean the model will always be accurate 97%. This accuracy will keep changing as and when the data changes, the business realm changes, the business modalities changes, business rules changes. But for the purposes of this webinar, you could assume that this model is 97%, which is a very highly sought after accuracy. Okay, in real life, this is not always possible. Okay, so once I run all these models, I can also look at comparing which of my models are better. Is support vector model better than random forest, or is random forest better than decision tree? So I create machine learning, your Python and machine learning algorithms allow you to create this kind of a table where you can compare different models, right? And say, okay, in all these cases, random forest is giving me the highest accuracy, right? And finally, whichever model that you are choosing, typically in production, you don't run all these models to run your production. You take a sample of your production data, run your models, and then come out with which is the best performing model. And then once you find the best performing model, you run your entire production data with that model, right? So certain times you might want to see that your model is not working well. So you will also have an opportunity to boost the performance of your model. So model boosting techniques are something that you will learn as well. Okay, and with all of that, you finally once you run your model, you end up creating visualizations. The visualizations would be what is your actual versus predicted visualization, right? You can create visualizations either in Python or in Tableau. Typically for management or an organization, visualizations are done in tools like Tableau or Power BI. Okay, so this is a quickie about how a machine learning algorithm would work. Okay, I know I've covered a lot of topics in just probably 15 minutes, but this is what your course would probably cover in various different various different ways across various different months. Okay, so that would be from my side. Ankur, back to you.
Sure. Thanks, Anand. So I guess all of you guys observed about the way Anand described the overall process, right? And Let me just share my screen first. Yeah. Yeah. So one theme is obviously some of it may not have made sense to you because it requires some looking at the videos, understanding what the topic is, and then when the mentorship sessions happen, right? Some of these things then start to make sense because then that's where mentors like Anand will work with you and then take you through in this kind of detail all the topics that you have covered, right? So, I mean, and these are the kind of things that you have to learn machine learning and AI, right? So just imagine, let's say, so now Anand was there taking through some of these complex topics, and I'm sure some of you might have not understood it, but then imagine that if you were doing it on your own, right? Then, and going through the same topic, you would definitely need a support system, and that's where the mentorship comes in. That's the whole idea of mentorship, that you consume some content and there is a support system from our end, from the mentors, that you can speak to the mentors, ask questions. Mentors runs through in this kind of detail for the topics covered, right? So that kind of then starts becoming like more guided on a weekly basis, where some pre-work is done from your end, and then the mentors works with you to ensure that the topics are, you understand what was covered in detail, right? By the way, what Anand was talking about, just give you a simple analogy, right? He was talking about the segmentation is becoming more and more, on a, like, people used to do segmentation once in a year, once in 1 month. Now it is becoming more and more instant. I'm guessing you would have felt it, right? If you go to, let's say, Facebook or Amazon right now, you would see that the ads displayed to you are very different from, let's say, the ads displayed to somebody else. And based on your online behavior, those kind of ads also change very rapidly, right? So that's the kind of marketing, that's the kind of segmentation which is happening almost on a real-time basis, right? And then specific messages for a specific kind of segments are being shown. So that's the power of machine learning, which is now being harnessed to drive better business outcomes, to deliver the right message to the right audience, right? So that's where it is. That's the kind of use case which Anand was talking about, right? So let me move on. So the one thing that happens with this, I mean, if you look at a pure play online model where you have videos to consume, first of all, you don't have a support system. The topic itself is a little involved, as I said, and you also observe, right? So typically the completion rates for online programs are only 20%. And which means like 4 in 5 people attempting, they do not finish the program. And even if they finish the program, we don't know what's the kind of learning outcome have these guys got, right? And this is even lower for technical subjects. So at Great Learning, we take a lot of pride in saying that our programs have more than 90% completion rates. And that's one of the targets that we have for ourselves, right? And that's one thing that we really monitor. And a whole bunch of team works with each participant to make this happen, right? So there is support from the mentors, as we discussed. There is a program manager which is attached to each batch and works with each student to help in the learning journey. Then there's a technical resource who helps with resolving technical queries. If there are issues or specific queries technically, mentors can take it, and also the technical resource takes it. So the whole team works with each participant to provide that level of support so that the learning outcome for each participant is met. In our case, it is met for more than 90% of the times. And even the 10% that we don't see here is because people have to travel on site, or sometimes that becomes a reason. But most of the participants, almost all of the participants who go through our programs actually end up finishing it with the right learning outcome. So this slide summarizes some of the, we have, so some of these comments from our alumni are testament to the whole model, the online plus mentoring model, but it shows that it is really working, right? And over time, we have been doing it for a long time. Over time, we have perfected it. We have figured out what is the right amount of content to be viewed, what is the right amount of intervention in terms of mentorship, what's the kind of projects that you should be doing. right? All of that has been perfected over time. And now the learning outcomes, and people are calling out mentorship sessions, they're calling about content, they're calling about projects, structure, which is also very important. So this provides a structure, which is not there in the online program, pure play online programs. Right? So that I also want to probably at this stage, okay, let me just cover this presentation. I can take the questions. I also want to point out that at Great Learning, we also provide we do a lot of activity on the hiring side, which is basically we organize monthly career fairs which are open to alumni and students. Last week, I mean, the most recent event was last week, which was in Chennai, where about for more than 18 companies participated. 200 interviews happened on that same day. Right, it was like a career fair. One day, all the companies came to the same location. Then all our alumni, we had rolled it out to all our alumni and students. Some of them came. So there were 200 interviews happened on that day, of which about 120 plus commitments were made to pursue the process further. Right. So that's the other thing that we do, which is to help meet the learning outcomes, but also to help meet the career outcomes for all of you. Right. So before I go to my last and concluding slide, let me just look at the questions and let me take some questions. Okay, so one question is from Nazir Noor. How many jobs are created in a single company for AI? So Nazir, so what we are now seeing is that companies usually have, depending on the business that they are in, from 15% to almost all the company, if it is a company which is a supporting, which is an analytics consulting company or AI machine learning consulting company, then almost all of its workforce will be like that. So 15 to that to almost to 90%, let's say, of the company of the team is usually dedicated to analytics, and that we have seen over the decade as well. What we are seeing now is that as we are moving into some of these advanced techniques, these analytics teams are moving into data science, machine learning, and AI. So they are upskilling because the kind of tools that companies need these days to retain their competitive edge are more advanced. Because they have access to a lot of data, they have access to cheap computing resources, a lot of storage, all of that. So they are now able to use some of these advanced techniques. So the mix of these teams is now changing towards data science, machine learning, and AI, right? And as I said, 15% to 90%. And over time, in 2-3 years, all of these teams, the expectation would be for everyone in these teams to be a data scientist, to know about some of these basic algorithms, right? And some of them, if you know about some of these advanced techniques, then you can create that value for your own career, and that can help you propel your career at this stage. The second question which I saw was on the what is the intensity of programming or coding which is required, right? So as I said, there is no prerequisite to joining this course. There has to be some programming experience in the past, but we don't expect you to know a specific language. Obviously not Python, although Python is the language that we will use during the course of the program to implement all of these techniques. So we start with a refresher course in Python and build a good base in statistics before we move ahead, right? As you go along, all of the algorithms have to be written in Python. You will have to learn to code a little bit. Having said that, Python is not like any other language. Python is a very, very user-friendly language per se, right? I mean, so to say, which is, it's very easy for in Python to run very complex commands. So for example, if you run a neural network, it will take, data preparation will maybe a lot of some lines, but then to run that particular command, it'll take 2 to 3 lines, and that's about it. So it's very user friendly. It's very easy to learn, right? And we provided support for you to learn this language as you go along, right? And all of these mentor sessions, etc. Mentors also work closely with you to make sure that you are able to pick up these. So yeah, there is some bit of programming involved, but you will learn it through the course. Okay, I see other questions coming in. Do we have only online AI program? Yeah, we do have. That's This is a separate program, so please reach out to the, this is from Samarjeet, please reach out to the team here to figure out what that program is. Are there any vacancies in AI as a fresher? So in machine learning, yes, we are seeing in machine learning, there's a lot of vacancies for freshers. We also run another program which is targeted towards early stage career professionals. And some of our batches have got really good opportunities there. So how many hours required per week? 3 to 3.5 hours of video content viewing, and then 2 hours of mentorship sessions. That's how we have, structured the course. Okay, let me just look at this. Okay, I'm a .NET developer since ML. This is Amreen Sheikh. Completely data science subject now. Will it help me in career building? Yes. So it is more like a different career, but since you have the development experience, I think you can very quickly pick up these techniques. I don't think you'll have a lot of issue in learning Python, then start appreciating these techniques. So as I said, as we go forward, there's a lot of demand that we see for ML and AI expertise, and there are people are actively looking to upskill and then reskill into these areas. And that's the reason we also are, providing these courses, because we see that demand in the industry. Okay, Mallikarjun says, serving in Indian Navy, no background of IT. So Mallikarjun, the question is, where do I see myself after completing this course, post-retirement, having 10 years of experience? So I think the answer there is that, as I also mentioned earlier, that companies have openings across the spectrum of experience, right? And what they also have in some cases are positions which need to know about it, but they don't need to. For example, if you're, let's say, working with a client to figure out exactly what should be the specifications for a project should be, right? How should it be designed? So all of that conversations you can have, which requires a lot of managerial experience, a lot of expertise, but also requires understanding the machine learning and AI concepts. So that ways, as you go more senior, look at more senior positions in the industry, they do require ML and AI understanding, but the main theme there is to how do you connect these techniques to solve business problems, and that remains, and that the experience that anybody has built on that will definitely is relevant, and it becomes more valuable with the understanding of ML and AI. Okay, I'm interested. So Abhimanyu says, I'm interested in going towards the robotics domain. AI and DL are very important for that field too. Yeah, would this course be helpful to me? Yeah, so I think robotics, see, AI and robotics are very cleanly linked, right? All of these, some of these physical actions which have to be done based on the inferences the machine has are linked to robotics. So I think there are, the short answer to this is yes, there is a close linkage between these two parts. And again, robotics has two parts to it. One is the mechanical part of it, which is a very different, how do you design a robot, etc. But the other part is the intelligence part of it, which is covered in the AI. Data used in the course is the real data used in the sectors or some dummy data. So we do all the projects that we have. We look at data which is real but is openly available in the domain so that we can use it for teaching purposes. So it does give a good flavor of the real world problems. And we also, so it's not dummy data per se, but it's also not at scale data because what we feel is that with that limited data, you're not getting stuck into solving the problems which come with the big data. And so you're able to appreciate the techniques and the inferences coming out of, appreciate the application of techniques and then the inferences coming out of, applying those techniques. Okay, I have, Tejaswar says, I have a question regarding job opportunity. I've heard that's a little difficult to get jobs in AI. So again, as I said, right now there are jobs in AI, definitely. And we also looked at the numbers there, right? But in India specifically, the way it is evolving, and that's a slide which I had shown as well, which is there are machine learning, and machine learning, there are a lot of jobs, right? Machine learning, as I said, a lot of these companies that we're speaking with, they have jobs in machine learning. All of these companies also are using AI for doing like natural language processing, NLP. So all the chatbots that you see on the websites, right? All of that pattern recognition that happens, and they're using it for vision, computer vision, which is segregating products by just looking at the photo of the product. So there are a lot of applications which people are working on. But yeah, I agree that the jobs mix is I would say 70% ML and 30% AI, and that is going to shift towards AI. So if you now get the foot into the door and start with a company in the ML domain and you know AI, you'll be well positioned to go into that realm when the company goes into that mode, when it starts using more and more AI techniques. And that's the evolution cycle that we had seen in one of the slides. How much stats knowledge is required for this program? So we do require, we don't require a lot of stats knowledge, but we do require basic appreciation for stats. As I said, there's a foundation course on stats. We start with that. So the way the program is structured is that the first two modules, Python and stats, are the foundation parts of the program where we spend a lot of time making sure all the basics are in place for everyone. And after that, we rapidly then move into applications into machine learning techniques. So we do, even if you come with the very basic knowledge of stats into the program, we will cover stats from the beginning and give you that perspective. So you don't need to know prior a lot of complex stats at all. Confused regarding which is the better career opportunity, AI or cloud computing? I think both are good career opportunities, AI as well as the cloud. But AI is more broad-based. There are a lot more opportunities in AI than in cloud. And Vivek says, how much is this program relevant for professionals having 8-9 years experience? Because most of the times companies pick less experience for technical roles. So I think I answered it in one of the earlier questions as well, which is, and we work very closely with the industry. We talk to a lot of companies. All of these companies, I think getting people at entry level is still easier because you can get those people and train them, because of the low cost of these to train these guys. There's not a lot of opportunity cost. At a mid to senior level experience, that becomes really difficult, right? Because also the intensity or the propensity for decreases um, as as they have more and more years of experience. So a lot of companies are looking to hire in that spectrum where they want that management experience, leading teams experience, right? Handling complex project experience, but they also want the AI and ML experience in that and understanding of these techniques. So again, how much technically you use it differs. If you're very junior, you'll use do a lot of technical things. As you go more and more senior, the technical part will go down, but need the understanding of what these techniques are, how are they applied, like what kind of effort would they have, how do you weave that into a business scenario? That is very important and very relevant for people in 8 to 9 years of experience bracket. Is it possible to switch for an experienced person of 8 years in QA to switch in ML? Yes, we have been running this program for a while now. We have seen these kind of transitions happen already for our alumni. At the end of the day, what matters is the learning outcome. If people go through this course, and as I said, 90% of the people that we have go through this course and complete it, if you have the learning outcomes, if you have the understanding in machine learning and AI, since not a lot of resources have that with this kind of experience in the market, we have seen that happening time and again, from completely irrelevant experience to getting jobs into data science and ML and AI. Okay, I do have a Polytechnic after metrics, so don't know much about stats. I think I've answered this, Prince. Stats we will cover in the course. Just a basic appreciation of stats. Basically, what I'm saying is you should not be averse to learning stats. If that's the case, then it's okay. So with that, I think we are at time. So thank you everyone for coming in, for attending this session. I hope I've answered some of your questions. If you have more questions, please reach out to the team. Right, our team will be very happy to talk to you and resolve these questions. Right, but as I said, I mean, AI and ML are the emerging technologies, really good career opportunities as we go along. Even if you're in your current job, knowing these technologies will help you get that extra mileage of your career going forward. And the second thing is, while you're learning these techniques, It's not very easy to learn it on your own online, especially in an online format. You definitely need some support system. And what our online program does is we provide a lot of support through our mentorship sessions, where the mentors meet you on a weekly basis to take you through some of these topics in detail, as Anand showed, right? On a week-to-week basis. On a week-to-week basis, you are all caught up. If you're looking at all the videos, you're all caught up on a weekly basis, and then you move on to the next section of the module, and then once you complete a module, you move on to the next module. So having that support is really crucial to meeting the learning outcomes. So thank you once again for all of you for joining, right? And yeah, and have a good day.